And we are back with President Ramaphosa, and today 6 people died in a Parabola mine fire. That's 54 deaths this year alone. It includes the 3 miners whose bodies have still not been recovered from the Lily mine in Mpumalanga. Let's go over now to our correspondent, Goli, who is standing by for us with a question for the President.
Well, thank you very much, Jane. The tragic week of the 12th to the 16th of August in 2012 will go down and forever be etched in the collective memory of the people of Marikana and South Africa at large. Now, on that particular day, 44 people died, 34 of them in just one day, gunned down by the police. Jane, on the 16th of August, the determined police, who were heavily armed, were determined to make sure that they put an end to a wildcat strike that had turned deadly at this Lonmin platinum mine behind me. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa, who was Lonmin's non-executive director of the mine at the time, he was accused of essentially using his influence and proximity to power when he called for police reinforcements, which ultimately resulted in what has become known as the first state-sponsored massacre in a democratic South Africa. Now, my guest, Tumega Makwangana, who is a community leader and activist here in Marikana, unfortunately could not make it here to us tonight, but she has asked me to convey this particular message to the President, and it is as follows. Sir, when will you come to Marikana as promised? People are yearning for closure.
Yes, as I have said before, I know that people want closure. I also want closure. And it's a matter that I know that needs to be addressed. And there have been discussions that have spanned right across issues of addressing the tragedy that occurred there through healing the wounds, because those wounds need to be healed and they need to be met. I need to be there myself, which I am going to do. And there are other processes.
So you are going to go to Marikana?
Oh, yes, yes. And there are other processes that need to be followed through and finalized with regard to the various lawsuits that have been launched. So all that is still a process of finalization. And I've thought that it will be best that we clean all that up so that when finally one goes, and there are quite a number of people who want to go there as well, when we finally go, we should have a situation where we are able to effectively put closure to this matter and put it to bed and heal the wounds. I know it will never be put to bed, but it will at least be healing the wounds, and that in our culture is important.
Because you're right, for many people it's still very alive, and I just want you to look at some of these pictures with me.
Yes.
How do you feel when you see that? I mean,
well, sadness, and that should never have happened. It's an incident that will take a long time to blot out of our memory, and maybe our memory should remain engaged with it so that an incident like that never happens again in South Africa, where people lose their lives in the way that they did. So I am sad and continue to be saddened by what happened, but at the same time, I have the strength of conviction to say that I will go.
and when will you go? You said you've got to type a few things first. But
well,
when,
the processes are underway. No, I know.
To see you.
Yeah, the processes are underway to put closure to this. So time is now moving on, and we know that it has to be done, and it will be done.
That was a tragedy, obviously. I spoke a little bit earlier on about the tragedy that we experienced today about another mining disaster.
That's right.
We're seeing this far too frequently. What is going wrong there?
Well, the tragedies and the deaths that are happening in the mining industry are something that is totally unacceptable. It is unacceptable that up to date hereof we've lost up to 54 deaths. There has been great improvement in the mining industry. When I was General Secretary of the National Union of Mine Workers, we used to lose up to 800 workers in a year. And now that has been reduced, but one death is far too much.
Because we've seen a spate, haven't we? We've seen an increase, so something's going wrong.
We've seen a sudden spate of these deaths that are happening, and the Minister of Mineral Resources is going out there tomorrow. I've insisted that he should go and see exactly what happened in Palabora Mining Company. That has been one of the safest mines that...
One of our last copper ones, I believe.
It is a copper mine. It's been one of the safest mines, and all of a sudden this happens, and through a fire that enraged underground. And now this has to be stopped. This has to be brought to an end. Mine managers and mine operators must know that we cannot continue tolerating deaths like this.
And because
at the regulatory level, we are going to tighten up the regulations to ensure that those who run these mines, those who run underground operations, must be accountable themselves, because we cannot have so many deaths just following one upon another on an ongoing basis.
If you look at Lily Mine, you've still got bodies
and trapped underground,
which is extraordinary. You can imagine the families, what they must be suffering.
The families must be going through, real hell, because they will never have closure. Their family members are entombed in the underground belly of a mine, and with no hope that they will ever surface. So that is going to remain an open wound for a long time.
Julius Malema says that you need to nationalize the mines, that possibly the mines are too close to you for anything to be done, and this is why we're seeing the problems as far as safety is concerned. What's your response to that?
Well, I've always said that, mining is a capital-intensive industry. People get together as shareholders, and they buy little shares here and there, and then you build up a lot of capital. And the managers are then able to sink it into a hole. It's capital that never comes from one entity, because no one is willing to risk so much money to bury it or to dig it into a big hole underground. And that is what these companies do. They go around the world and raise money, little money here and there.
But
now,
what
to
about
nationalize the mines would mean that the state now takes on that responsibility and then takes money that should go for health, for education, and digs a hole where you never know what you're going to find. And billions of rands are dug into a hole, and nearly every year, the managers will say, we want more capital. We want more capital on an ongoing basis. Yes, you can make profit. When mines operate well, you can make profit, but then you're open to the cyclical nature of commodities. One day you make money, the next day you make a loss. One day you make money, the next day you make a loss. And the worst part, you are not like the oil producers. You are a price taker. The oil producers make the price. They say, we want to sell our oil at this price. As a miner, you take the price. The price of gold is determined somewhere in London, and you have nothing to do with it. And in the end, your costs may be way above what you are able to sell the metal for. Okay, and that is definitely not my recipe for good economic management.
Okay, I know we've got to go to breaks, but very quickly, the mining charter, where does it sit in all of this? I know you want to increase black ownership up to 30%. Is that realistic?
Well, it is realistic. The industry has accepted. It used to be at 26, and now the uptick is just 4%, and the industry has accepted that. Now, the issues that are being discussed is precisely how to divide that up, and how much of that equity should be free carry for communities and for workers, and how black entrepreneurs can participate in all this. And these are not difficult problems. Minister of Mineral Resources is dealing with that, and the industry is cooperating, the communities are participating. I've heard that there's some complaint from some organization about the level of participation by community members, and we say we want to hear their views. And the communities have been making really fantastic propositions which we need to take into account. So it will be finalized shortly.
All right, thank you. Up next, crime, punishment and community safety when our interview with President Ramaphosa continues.